Going to be doing a cybersecurity training. This training is hosted by GROW South Dakota in partnership with Dakota State University and the Small Business Development Center. Our trainer today is Abigail Bushee, a DSU Senior. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Abigail.
Hello, everybody. As Olivia said, I'm Abby Bushee, and then I'm a senior at Dakota State University. I have a computer science major, and then I've kind of been working in and out of cybersecurity for a little bit. And also, I could get it. As she said, we're working with GROW South Dakota and the consortium of cybersecurity clinics. So to start, a big question that a lot of people always have is why? Why should you know about online risks? Well, most of us are online the majority of the day. We scroll through social media, look up answers to questions we might have, send emails to coworkers, and use web apps like Google Docs or OneDrive to write up documents. Essentially, we're almost always online in some way, so we need to know the risks. But as a small business, why should you care about the online risks? Some businesses rely heavily, or small businesses rely heavily on the internet to function and run. You may email customers, employees, or suppliers. You might post on social media to spread the word about your business or promote deals or events. You likely have a website for customers to buy your products, make appointments, or see where you're located and when you're open. All these things could be vulnerabilities in your security, and they could be exploited in or be affected by a cyber attack. So let's look at a couple statistics. About 73% of small business owners reported a cyber attack last year, and 88% of data breaches are caused by employee error or they initiated something, such as they accidentally clicked on a phishing link or downloaded malware on a company computer. Now, we often hear that employees can be a weak link when it comes to cybersecurity, but they're actually your biggest defense. If employees are properly trained in certain cybersecurity topics, they can prevent a lot of cyber attacks. As we talk about the risks, we'll cover some of the things employees should know about and what they should get training in. Be sure to also check out Station X's article for more statistics on cyber attacks in small and medium-sized businesses, and also check out Security Today's article for some more statistics and facts about how cyber attacks happen from human error. So there are three main reasons why we should avoid online risks. A major one for most people is identity theft. This can take many different forms, some of which you've probably heard about, such as somebody getting into your bank account and moving money out, or setting up a credit card in your name and putting you in debt. It could also be somebody impersonating you or your company online, either by hacking into your account or creating a new one with a similar name or post. They can make posts as you or your company, giving customers false information about the company or posting phishing links. If a customer thinks that these posts are legitimate, they'll likely believe them or fall for the phishing attempts. A similar way you might see identity theft is if a hacker gets into your email or admin accounts, allowing them to see your confidential emails or send emails as your company. Again, this can lead to hackers sending phishing emails to customers or employees using a legitimate account that they trust. Getting access to admin accounts or confidential emails can lead to data breaches. And this brings us to our next reason to avoid online risks, which is data breaches. This is when hackers get access to and release or sell confidential information, such as customer login information, passwords, credit cards, or addresses. Customers often lose trust in companies that get a data breach and leak their information, and it can prevent you from getting new customers. Think back to when LastPass, a popular password manager, got hacked almost 3 years ago. While hackers didn't have direct access to passwords, did you trust them to keep your password safe? Do you trust them now to keep your password safe? While LastPass did not publicly release how many customers they lost because of this incident, they likely lost a ton of their customers and profit, which is our final concern with online risks, which is money or loss of money or profit. As mentioned, hackers could hack into bank accounts or steal your identity to transfer money or put you in debt. But cyber attacks can also be very costly to recover from. You might hire somebody to investigate what happened, and how a hacker got into your systems so you know what needs more security. Or maybe money or medical records were involved in the attack. You need to hire a legal team to help you navigate the laws and find who is responsible for the attack. Depending on the attack, you might also have to repair or replace systems or servers, which can get costly. You might also desire to hire somebody to better secure your system after the attack. And as mentioned, customers lose trust in companies that leak their data, meaning they will likely stop buying or using your product or service, which of course leads to profit loss. So let's look at some statistics from Egress's article, Must Know Phishing Statistics for 2024. They surveyed 500 cybersecurity professionals and gathered some important data. They found that 51% of companies that had a cyber attack experienced some financial loss. 46% saw a loss in revenue, and 40% saw damage to their company's reputation. Essentially, it's very likely you'll experience some loss in revenue if you do experience a cyber attack. Now let's go over some of the risks and how you can mitigate them. Let's start with malware. There are several different types of malware, and it's likely you already know about some of them. So focus on ransomware, since it is debatably one of the more dangerous types of malware for a small business. Ransomware is a type of malware that encrypts files, preventing you from being able to access or read them. Hackers will then demand a ransom for the key or something that will decrypt the files, allowing them to be accessed again. This is a very tricky cyber attack to deal with, and it often puts companies in a really difficult position. These ransoms are often a lot of money, and occasionally they're more than the company can even provide. You could potentially lose the data if you can't pay the ransom, and it's not always guaranteed that hackers will give the key once it's paid. Depending on the data, it can greatly affect productivity. Now, there are two types of ransomware that are worth mentioning: double extortion and triple extortion. Double extortion is when the hacker not only encrypts the data, but they also make a copy and steal it. Once you pay the ransom to get the decryption key, hackers will then demand more money or they'll leak the data. In triple extortion, hackers will also demand a ransom from the customers or partners that the data is about. For example, if they manage to get a copy of a customer's password, the hacker will demand a ransom from that customer or the password will be leaked. Check out Perline's article, What is Double, Triple, and Multi-Extortion Ransomware, for more information about different extortion methods. Now let's cover a few things to do if you do end up falling victim to a ransomware attack. First, you should be sure to disconnect the affected device from anything it might be connected to, such as the internet or any external drives, especially if the device has a cloud service or database it regularly syncs with. This will help prevent the malware from spreading to other devices and hackers from encrypting more data. Next, good anti-malware software often includes decryption tools to help you decrypt data. They might also help you identify the strain of ransomware you're dealing with, which can help you find a key online to decrypt the data. Be sure to check if the anti-malware you use has these tools or can help you identify the strain of ransomware. Both of these options can help you get your data back without needing to pay the ransom. Finally, be sure to report the attack. This can probably go without saying, but ransomware attacks are illegal, and reporting the attack can help law enforcement figure out who created the ransomware and how they're spreading it. This can help prevent the hacker from stealing from any more companies, and you might also receive some resources, tips, or funds to help your company recover from the attack. Be sure to check out IBM's article, How to Handle a Ransomware Attack, and CISA's article, I've Been Hit by Ransomware, for some more tips on handling a ransomware attack. You can also take a peek at CISA's Report Ransomware page to get information on how and where to report a ransomware attack. So how can you protect yourself from malware overall? The best option is to install anti-malware. It can warn you if you're about to download malware, and can help you remove malware if your computer already has it. Be sure to look for and invest in a good anti-malware. It's best to have it on every computer you or your employees use for work. A good practice for almost every business is to prevent employees from being able to download applications or programs on company computers. This can greatly reduce the risk of employees accidentally downloading malware on company computers with sensitive data. It also prevents company computers from having anything they don't need on them, which can save on storage space if that's a concern. This can be done by giving employees accounts that do not have admin privileges, which is another best practice. Next, ensure devices and software are up to date. These updates often include new security features. For things like anti-malware, updates often give new ways to identify malware. How malware is created and used changes all the time. Hackers often change their malware just enough so that anti-malware can't detect it. So it's important to keep these up to date with the newest ways to detect malware. For things like computers and databases, there are tons of vulnerabilities in the software of the device, and updates or patches are used to fix and better secure them. Overall, these updates can help prevent hackers from exploiting vulnerabilities and gaining access to confidential files. You should also regularly back up any important data. This is one of the best ways to ensure you always have access to it. Whether it's lost due to malware, another cyber attack, or the device it was on gets lost, stolen, or damaged. Losing data can greatly slow down productivity, and depending on the data lost, it can be a hassle to try and get back or recover without a backup. Finally, look up for phishing attempts or scams. Be cautious about clicking on suspicious links, pop-up ads, or downloading files from suspicious websites online. They could all download malware without you knowing or realizing what you're downloading is malware. We'll talk about phishing attempts and scams next. But before we do, be sure to check out Unival's article, Viruses and Malware, for more information about different types of viruses and malware, and some more tips to avoid and protect yourself against them. Also, check out Cyber News' best antivirus software in 2024, tested by cybersecurity experts to see some popular anti-malware and compare them for your needs. Now, what is phishing? And I don't mean phishing like I'm trying to catch a fish. Phishing is when somebody sends a message pretending to be someone else to trick you into giving personal or confidential information, such as your passwords or access to confidential files. They might also trick you into downloading malware. These attacks can range from somebody claiming to be a distant relative needing money to an account deactivation notification requiring you to log in through their link. Or possibly somebody claiming to be a boss that needs your password to an admin account, or a business partner requiring customer information they ordinarily wouldn't need. These types of attacks can be sent through email or direct messaging, like a text message. Let's look at some more statistics from Egress's survey of 500 cybersecurity professionals. To start, about 94% of organizations have fallen victim to phishing attacks. Of those who fell for this attack, 58 have suffered an account takeover where the hackers took over admin accounts. And 83% of attacks had multi-factor authentication, or MFA, bypassed for the attack to succeed. Or in other words, hackers found a way to get around an account's multi-factor authentication. We'll cover multi-factor authentication more in a little bit. Something to keep in mind is that hackers often don't hack in, they log in. By tricking somebody into giving their login information, they don't need to hack into anything to get confidential information. This is why the attacks can be so dangerous. It can be really easy to trick the unexpected into giving away login information, making it easy for hackers to access information or systems they aren't authorized to. Now let's cover some of the risks of phishing attacks. One of the main risks of falling for a phishing attack is identity theft. Someone could get access to your accounts, credit cards, answers to security questions, or social security numbers in some cases. In a company setting, this can be a hacker getting access to an account with admin privileges, which can lead to them changing your website, changing files for customers to download to malware, stealing or deleting customer data such as passwords or credit cards, or they could change security settings to make it easier for them to break in later and steal more information. As mentioned earlier, it can be used to trick somebody into downloading malware. This can lead to company computers getting ransomware or another type of malware called spyware, which lets hackers see everything you do on that computer, including what passwords employees may enter or confidential files they might look at. Now, I'm sure we can all agree that this is something to avoid, but how can you spot a phishing attempt? It's actually pretty easy. Let's cover some steps you might take if you get an unexpected email or message. The first thing you should do is check the email address to see if it's a legitimate address. Hackers can be a bit tricky and register addresses that are a letter or two off or are just close enough that you might assume that it is the legitimate account. If you're ever unsure, you can verify it with the person that sent it by calling them or the company. You could also ask them in person if it's someone you see in the office. If it's another company that you can't really call, you can look up their official email address. Looking up a legitimate email address can help you tell if the address is correct, and you can also email them at the right address and ask if they sent the message. If the message says to log in for verification or to reset a password, you can go to their website to log in and change the password there instead of clicking on the link. Next, check the message for urgent language like act now or immediately reset your password. When people receive urgent messages like this, they often don't stop to check if it's real. Finally, you can hover your mouse over any links to see the URL it leads to. Use this trick to check if it's leading to where it claims or if it goes to an official website. We're often told to check for grammar or spelling errors to spot phishing attempts, but with the increase in popularity and improvement of AI, this isn't always the best way to tell if something is phishing anymore. Other signs, such as urgent language or an incorrect address or URL, are much better ways to check these days. Be sure to always verify if they claim you need to send money, give customer information, or are asking you to log in through a link. Be sure that your employees get trained in spotting phishing attempts. Employees who can spot phishing attempts are less likely to fall for them. It can greatly decrease the likelihood you'll experience a cyber attack as a result of them falling for this trick, or falling. Check out CISA's article, Recognize and Report Phishing, for more tips on spotting and avoiding phishing attempts. Now let's look at a few examples of phishing attempts. Here's an example of a phishing email I've actually received. The main red flag I noticed was the email address. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a real email address that looks like this. The next thing to take note is if you hover your mouse over the URL or the link, you get this URL. This email is claiming to be from Kohl's, but I don't see Kohl's anywhere in the URL, so this likely doesn't lead to any page on Kohl's website. Now let's look at this one. This is another message that I've actually received kind of recently. Once again, pay attention to who sent it. Something to really pay attention to is the domain of the email address. This is going to be anything after the @ sign. Legitimate companies often have their name as the domain. For this example, this one could be a bit tricky because it makes sense to receive a message with a domain help or support from a company sending a message about technical support, or in this case, a possible new payee on your account. But this actually isn't the right address for First Bank and Trust. Some hackers can get even trickier and register a domain similar to the company. If you're ever unsure, you can always look up the official address. Another thing to take note is that if you look at the link, once again, this won't lead us to the First Bank and Trust's webpage. And then something you should also look out for in URLs is how it ends. Let's look at this message. As you can see, it ends with onlinehome.us. This means it likely won't take us to Netflix's website. Now you might have noticed that my phone actually says this message is from an unsaved number. Beware of smishing or phishing. While scammers have gotten smarter, so has technology. Tons of online tools and resources can help identify phishing and scams, but something to keep in mind is that they can always miss something. So be sure to always check, even if you don't get a possible phishing alert. Let's look at another example. This one could be a bit trickier to spot. Remember how we discussed domain names a minute ago? Well, google.support is not the right domain Google uses to send messages. The second red flag is when you hover your mouse over the link, you get this URL. Notice tinyURL. tinyURL is a web service that lets you shorten your website's URL. It means you can't tell where it'll take you. Since this email is claiming to be Google, you'd think they wouldn't need to shorten their URL. Once again, this likely won't lead you to a page on Google's website. Again, if you receive a message like this or the previous one, you can always go to the legitimate site and log in there, or change your password if you're concerned it got hacked. Now, what do you think about this one? Is this phishing? We haven't gone over multi-factor authentication yet, but do you think sending the code would be wise? Get a quick drink. So the answer is that this is a phishing attempt. Notice how the message in the middle was sent before the verification code? A scammer likely sent this message and then attempted to log into an account that needed a verification code. It's also suspicious for a company to require you to text a verification code back to them. especially if it's to cancel a password reset. You should never send anybody a verification code, and you should only enter it on a legitimate website. If you want to test your ability to spot a phishing attempt, check out the Google phishing quiz, which is where I got the last 2 phishing examples, and also the one with the Netflix website. Now let's move on to online scams. Similar to phishing attempts, scams promise to give you something such as a product or money, but they actually steal your information or money. We typically think of online scams as ordering something online only to receive a product knockoff or nothing at all. But there are many other ways you might see a scam online, such as somebody saying you need to pay fake bills, being promised a paid program for free only for it to be malware, or even a fake website pretending to be another. If you think some of these sound like phishing, that's because phishing is a type of scam. Let's go over some of the scams you might face as a small business. One common scam is a fake invoice scam. This is when scammers create a fake invoice for products, materials, or services you didn't purchase, and then claim you need to pay for them. Hackers do this in hopes that whoever pays the bills won't check if the invoice is real and will just pay it. Scammers might also send an email that looks like one of your suppliers is asking you to send payments to a different account. Be sure to verify with your supplier if these messages are real and which account they wish payments are and which accounts they wish payments to be sent to by giving them a call. Another scam is an advertising scam, where scammers claim to advertise your company or list it in a business directory. Scammers won't actually advertise your site or business and end up billing you like they did. These business listings are often fake as well. Finally, a government impersonation scam. This is your classic receiving a call from the IRS claiming you owe a bunch of money in unpaid taxes. This could also be scammers claiming to cut electric, gas, or water for fake late bills, or claiming to be a government agent saying you need to renew a license, or they'll suspend your business license or fine you. Or it could be a fake site tricking you into paying to apply for business grants from a fake government program. Check out the Federal Trade Commission's article, Scams in Your Small Business, to see some more online scams you might face and how to avoid them. Now let's cover some general tips for avoiding scams. Be sure to stick to reputable sites when shopping online, applying for grants, or looking for new software. Look out for deals that are too good to be true, because they often are. Be sure to check the URL when shopping online or on government sites to ensure you aren't accidentally on a copycat site, or a site that looks exactly like the real one. Finally, trust but verify. Be sure to verify late bills, invoices, and messages from suppliers about payment methods. Also verify things like advertising companies, business listings, advertisers claim to add you to, and government websites with grants. Something that can help with both phishing attempts and online scams is having a good password. But how can having a good password help you in a phishing attempt or a scam? Well, a best practice is to avoid using the same password for multiple accounts. If a hacker can get the password to one account, they won't be able to access any other account. Let me tell you a little story from a past experience. Back in April of 2021, Facebook had a pretty big data breach that leaked over 530 million passwords. At the time, I had a Facebook account, and I also had a really bad password that could easily be guessed. But I also used that password for almost all my other accounts. So seemingly overnight, nearly all of my accounts got hacked into, and I had to change the password on every single one of them. Luckily, I don't really post on social media, so they couldn't find any personal information about me that I might have posted privately, like where I work or go to school. If I did, hackers might have tried getting into accounts associated with my school or the business that I worked for. But what if I worked for a small business at the time, and I used that password for an admin account that gave me access to the company's database? If I posted where I worked, a hacker could try my password for the admin account and get in. So you should always avoid using the same password across multiple accounts. And if you still choose not to, even after the risk it might put your company in, just know that it took me days to change all those passwords. But there's another lesson to be learned from this incident. Let's say years down the road, I get a job working with a small business, and I once again have an admin account. Do you think I should use that password again? No. Not only is it a very weak password that is easy to guess, but hackers will likely use a technique called credential stuffing to get into that account. This technique is when hackers look up past data breaches to see if your passwords have been leaked before and then test those passwords. This is also why it's important to never use a password that got leaked again. As the owner of a small business, not only should you have good passwords, but your employees should too. Make sure employees know how to create good, long, and complex passwords, and that they actually use good passwords. Once again, employees are your best defense against cyber attacks. If they use good passwords, your whole company will be more secure. Now let's go over some other ways you can improve your passwords. First, avoid using things like your name, birthday, kids or pets' names, or the company that you work for as your password. These are very common practices, and most people will often post this information online. Another good practice is to add special characters, such as the @ sign, exclamation mark, hashtag or pound sign, or a $sign. Next, be sure to use a long password. 8 characters is often recommended, but some experts are starting to suggest 14 or even 16 character passwords. One method a hacker might try if they really want to get into your account is called a brute force attack. This is when a hacker creates an algorithm to guess every combination of letter and number to try to guess your password. As you can assume, a password with only 4 characters is a lot easier to brute force than one with 14. Finally, be sure to change your password after a data breach. All of the previous suggestions can make it much harder for hackers to guess a password, but most won't put in the effort to guess one. Searching for a previously leaked password is much easier. If one of your passwords gets leaked, be sure to change all passwords to all accounts that use that password and avoid using that password for any future accounts. Now, there are a lot of rules to follow to have a good password, but password managers can help make it easier. Password managers can create and store long, complex, and random passwords for you. I had one go. So you only need to remember one really good password to log into the manager, and it will remember everything else for you. One feature you should also consider adding to all of your accounts is multi-factor authentication. With multi-factor authentication, you will have to verify every login attempt, often with your phone or code sent to your email or messages. This is one of the best ways to secure your accounts, since you'll be able to see and deny any unauthorized login attempt. Be sure to enable multi-factor authentication on your most sensitive accounts, such as any bank accounts or admin accounts in your company. Be sure to check out Siz's article, Use Strong Passwords and More Than a Password, for more ways and tips on using strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. Also, check out Tom's guide to compare some of the most popular password managers, including their pricing and any disadvantages. Now, you might occasionally like to work out of the office and in a public place like a coffee shop. Or maybe you're traveling and need to use public Wi-Fi to work. But we're often told that to avoid public Wi-Fi, so is it really unsafe? If you know a few tricks, it is much safer to use public Wi-Fi. Once again, it's also a good idea to make sure your employees know these tricks, especially if they can work out of the office in some place with public Wi-Fi. Let's start with some common risks. First is malicious hotspots. This is when a hacker uses a hotspot that mimics the name of the actual Wi-Fi. For example, if you go to Scooters and see a network named Scooters Guest Wi-Fi, you might connect to it if you don't know the actual name of Scooters public Wi-Fi. Hackers can use these hotspots to see or eavesdrop on everything you do on their network, including any information you enter, such as passwords or credit card numbers, what websites you visit, and what files you access through a cloud service like OneDrive. Another risk is if the public Wi-Fi you're using isn't secure. If the public Wi-Fi isn't secure enough, hackers can also eavesdrop on what you're doing online without needing to set up a fake network. It's the company with public Wi-Fi's responsibility for keeping their public network safe and secure. Now let's go over some ways you can stay safe when using public Wi-Fi. Make sure you're connected to the right network. Most places have a sign that says what their Wi-Fi is called, or you could always ask an employee. Be cautious of hotspots that are just a letter off, and be particular about the capitalization. Public Wi-Fi that has a password is generally a little bit more secure than those that don't. Another tip is to avoid entering personal information when using public Wi-Fi. Hackers can't see what you don't enter. Next is to use a VPN, or virtual private network. VPNs can encrypt your network traffic, Or in simpler terms, they scramble the data so hackers can't see or read what you're doing online. This can protect your data no matter where you are. Finally, make sure you only visit sites that have HTTPS. The S generally means the site is more secure and often means it is a legitimate site. Be sure to check out Verizon's article, 5 Essential Tips for Using Public Wi-Fi Securely, for more information on the risks and tips, as well as the Forbes article, Real Risks of Public Wi-Fi, Key Statistics, to see some statistics involved with the dangers of public Wi-Fi, such as how many people access public Wi-Fi and some of the most common places people's information was compromised. As a small business, you might face some risks through the network. One of the main risks is a network data breach. This is the general term for when hackers use the network in some way to access important or confidential information. They can access computers and systems through vulnerabilities in the network, or they could use malware, such as a remote access Trojan that lets hackers control employee computers through the network. They could also use a man-in-the-middle attack, where they eavesdrop on the network traffic and see things like admin login information or what confidential information employees are accessing. There are a few ways that you can keep your network safe. First, VPNs aren't just for personal use. They can help secure your whole network by encrypting data, preventing hackers from eavesdropping. Some routers also let you encrypt any incoming and outgoing traffic. Be sure to check your routers to see if they have this feature. Next, firewalls can help prevent malware from being downloaded when on your network. Like anti-malware, firewalls can detect if something downloaded is secretly malware. It can prevent the files from entering the network and being downloaded. They can also let you monitor network traffic and alert you to or block any suspicious activity, such as if somebody is trying to log into an admin account from a computer that is not one of your company computers. Think of it as like a checkpoint that only those authorized can pass. Finally, once again, ensure devices and software are up to date. Remember, hackers are constantly changing malware and their methods to sneak into systems. So keeping firewalls up to date can ensure they block the most recent versions of malware and look out for the most recent network exploit. Keeping devices up to date can also patch any vulnerabilities that could be exploited through a network connection. Check out Datamation's article, How to Secure a Network, 9 Key Actions to Secure Your Data, for more tips on how to secure your network. Now, there's a lot that I covered in a short amount of time, so let's recap everything and go over some general tips and best practices. First, use strong, complex, and unique passwords. Avoid using things like your name, birthday, kids or pets' names, or your company name as the password. Use special characters to make your passwords more complex. Ensure passwords are at least 8 characters long, but 14 or 16 characters is better. Avoid using the same password for multiple accounts. Password managers can also help make it easier to create and remember long and complex passwords. Another best practice is to use multi-factor authentication on all of your accounts. Multi-factor authentication requires you to verify every login attempt, making it easy to spot and prevent unauthorized attempts. Be sure to have it enabled on sensitive accounts like bank or admin accounts. Avoid clicking on any suspicious links or downloading from suspicious websites. Make sure anti-malware is installed on all your company computers. Be sure to regularly update devices and software. Updates often include new or better security features. And make sure to keep a backup of all your important data. This can help save you time and money if you end up being a victim of a cyber attack. Next, be sure to look out for phishing attempts and scams. These are some of the most common ways to get malware, becoming a victim of identity theft, and for hackers to get admin privileges for a cyber attack. Be sure to check if messages are sent from a legitimate source and look out for deals that are too good to be true. Be sure to check the URL where it leads and make sure that it's to the right site. And be cautious of urgent language such as "act now." One of the best ways to keep your company safe is to make sure employees are trained in some basic cybersecurity topics. Can your employees spot a phishing attempt? Do they use good passwords? Do they use multi-factor authentication? Make sure employees know how to spot phishing attempts, use good passwords and multi-factor authentication, and also know how to stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Be sure to have firewalls on your network and use a VPN to make it harder for hackers to eavesdrop on what you do online. Firewalls can help prevent malware from being installed when on your network. They can also detect suspicious activity and prevent hackers from using your network for cyber attacks. Finally, we haven't gone over this, but it's always a good idea to have a plan. What do you plan to do in the event of an attack? Who will you contact? Who's in charge of mitigating the damage? How should you isolate the system to prevent further damage? What evidence do you plan to gather for an investigation if you'll have one? How will you collect this evidence? Who will you have do an investigation? There are tons of things to consider when it comes to handling a cybersecurity attack, and it's often a stressful situation, so you might forget what has to be considered. A plan will make dealing with these attacks go a lot smoother. This plan is often called the incident response plan. Now, there are tons of tips and best practices for cybersecurity that I couldn't get to today. So here are a few sources if you're looking for some more tips or things to consider. The first link from the Federal Trade Commission has some more general tips for small businesses and cybersecurity. The second link by Kaspersky, we'll go with that, covers some more topics employees should get training in and the importance of cybersecurity training. And the third link talks more about making a cybersecurity plan, since we only briefly mentioned it at the end. And the final link at the bottom is to Have I Been Pwned website. You can enter your password to see if it's been in any data breaches. It does require you to enter the password, but the site itself is generally pretty safe. However, we do recommend not using it on a public or unsafe Wi-Fi to prevent eavesdroppers from seeing it.